Yeah, it's all about building the team, and getting that started initially is rocky, finding the right people. I mean, we went through 3 or 4 within a few months of like boots on the ground on multiple positions that we were looking for. But once you find the right team, that's where it happens.
Welcome to the Cash Flow Chronicles. I'm your host, Jonny and the founder of Catani Capital Group. For the last 2 years, I've been studying alternative assets and now help solve the problem of creating passive cash flow for creators, influencers, and busy professionals by bringing you 5 episodes a week of easy to understand education in the world of passive investing. What's up, guys? And welcome to another episode of the Investor Relations Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jonny, and I'm joined today by Bryndee Barton. Bryndee started her first real estate company in 2013 along with her husband, Kyle. What started as a side gig of duplexes turned into full-time business flipping houses, creating vacation rentals, and developing larger multifamily deals. Her specialty is managing large reconstruction projects remotely. She successfully managed and completed projects across 7 different states. Bryndee now focuses on Loma Homes vacation rental development, creating premium, extreme-themed homes for guests to get an immersive experience that leaves them with unforgettable memories. Bryndee, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me today.
Absolutely. Looking forward to the conversation. You obviously have a solid real estate resume. So kind of take us back to 2013. What caught your guys' attention about real estate and kind of tell us the story of what led to now?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. My husband and I were newly married, fresh out of college and undergrad, and just young and in corporate America world where we had real jobs now, starting to make money, but we didn't really know what our long-term goals were. We didn't know what our dream house was. And so we're like, well, we got to figure out how to invest this and what to do with it. And then we had always thought that real estate would be like our retirement. Like, you know, when we're older, like everybody does real estate for good investment. So it wasn't on our radar right away, but then started learning about it and we're like, why not do it now? We have no money. We're living on a college budget, but we're starting to get money. What better time to go all in? If we fall on our faces, we'll just be right where we started. So we decided to take the dive when I was only 21 years old and my husband was 23. We bought our first duplex. And it was a fixer-upper. We lived in one side, rented out the other, and we're like, this is great. We don't know what our dream house is, so why not use our money to get us a house and an investment, and then we'll kind of do some house hacking. So we renovated it ourselves. We had no experience with construction, so that is not the most beautiful house, but it was a rental and it was a great learning project, and it was great. So then from there, we kept growing our long-term rentals, then started picking up flipping houses. I had quit my full-time job when our first child was born, and I was managing, I was doing the property management myself and then managing the contractors on our flips. And then 2 years later, we got to the point where we were making enough money that my husband could quit his job. So we were both full-time in the business and kind of doing the traditional real estate route when our now business partner, Jeff, approached us and asked if we would create a vacation rental for him. And we were flipping houses remotely. He wanted to do a rental in Joshua Tree, California, because he's a data geek and figured out that that's the best place for him to invest, but he didn't have experience in real estate. So we were like, sure, we have no idea where that is, but we understand the principles of real estate. And you can go to any market and figure out the same things and make good investments if you know the good principles. So 2 weeks later, we drove out to Joshua Tree, California, made our first Airbnb, which turned out to be multiple acres with a dome house. And then we put trailers on that were all gutted, created into like detached bedrooms, and then muraled by a local artist. So it was this hippie wonderland. We had like this outdoor light entertainment area. We had a hot tub. We had these hammocks and a pool and these like crazy mural trailers, and it just killed it. It made double what Jeff was thinking it would. So he came back to us and was like, this is a great business. Why don't we go all in on this? So we've kind of phased out, my husband, Kyle, and I phased out of the traditional real estate and went all into what is now Loma Homes. And then Jeff quit his full-time jobs, went all into Loma Homes. We created this vacation rental company that we're all focused on right now.
Wow. I love it. That is quite the story. And obviously a lot to unpack there, right? So started, like you said, traditional route. I mean, I think 99% of my guests have at least flipped one home in their real estate careers, you know, and then what that led to, right? Kind of goes everywhere. But it seems like everyone kind of starts that wholesaling, that fix and flip. Now, what's wild about this, well, 2 things. One, Bryndee and I actually know each other in person. We met at a Utah RIA, where we discuss short-term rentals. Turns out Loma Homes is doing the same thing as a group that I raise capital for, which is hilarious. But what I want to know is, obviously when you're doing your fix and flips, you're not doing like wild Joshua Tree dome houses or any of these like, Orlando homes that you've designed. So kind of touch on, I feel like they're very different, right? In fact, probably some people who would be good at just designing a regular house may not be able to get creative. So what was it like going from that sort of, cookie cutter, rinse and repeat to like, okay, now we need to come up with a once in a, market experience?
Yeah, so it kind of happened naturally because we're very data driven as a company. Like I mentioned, Jeff's a data geek. That's how we started with Joshua Tree and vacation rentals in the first place. California is not our favorite place to invest politically. It's very hard for business owners. So after doing a couple of properties there, we decided to look for a new market. But starting with Joshua Tree, when we agreed to make a rental, our thought was we were just going to flip a house like it was normal. We'd buy a house, flip it, make it nice, and then we'd also like get it staged and ready for vacation rentals. But as we got to know Joshua Tree, we're like, this place is really cool. And if you look at the properties that are doing well, they all have something unique about them. And so there's lots of people going for different music festivals, art festivals, rock climbing. And we thought, if people are coming for this reason, why not build a unique experience for what they want? And that's how we ended up with the hippie wonderland. And then our second market, we decided we wanted to go over to Orlando because of the data, but there's a lot of competition there. I mean, there's like tens of thousands of vacation rentals. So you need to stand out. And if you look at the top performing ones, they all had some sort of like theming element to it, which makes sense because people go there for the theme parks. So we looked and we're like, we could do better than this. And I manage all of our construction and designs. And it was really fun because it was almost like a research project where I started coming up with like, what cool things would people want to like stay in or sleep in? How do I bring a theme park into a house? And I had never done that before. I'd worked with like regular contractors all the time. And even Joshua Tree, we had to find a mural artist, but that was the only thing. Now to Orlando, now I need to find someone who can make me a spaceship bed and not just be able to like make it out of like carpentry, but it needs to have like lights and be interactive and have a steering wheel and all these things. And then how do I make how do I make a bed that looks like a cloud that's floating? Or there were just these like odd ideas that I had in my mind of like, this would be the dream thing of what I want. So I started with that end goal of like, this is the dream house. Now I got to figure out how to get it. And funny enough, it's just Googling and talking to people. So I started Googling like people who make custom beds, people who make theme parks and haunted houses and children's museums. So I'm like, if they can make them for theme parks, they can make it for a house. So after making enough phone calls and being persistent, you finally find the right people. And it turns out there's a thing called foam carving. So I'm like, okay, foam carving is they actually carve these pieces out of really dense styrofoam. Then they cover it in this hard coating that makes it feel like it's rocks or whatever. So a lot of our custom beds are actually styrofoam on the inside, but I would have had no idea until I talk and Google enough. So once I knew that I was looking for a foam carving artist, now you can find those. So it was a very fun and interesting journey because I had never dealt with that. But if you Google and talk to enough people, you'll end up finding the right person for whatever job you have.
I love it. That's awesome. Just went out and it's amazing what you can find just by Googling, right? And you pretty much just find what you need. But that is fascinating to know that a lot of these beds, like you said, that look like they're either, like a carpenter built them or some kind of rock is just styrofoam, and that makes sense, right? It's gonna be easier to carve. I feel like ultimately, you can get a little bit more creative. Of course, people can do anything with wood as well. But so that's awesome. So you guys identified Orlando. You used data, of course, right? Which is really. It's really the way that we've been raising, right? When it comes to like raising capital for this, because now what you've done is you identified something that when you started getting into the Orlando market, I guess let's kind of back up a little bit. Did you immediately be like, we need to start creating a fund, or were you guys just thinking you're going to bring your own money into this and just own them yourself?
Yeah, so we came from the traditional background. We also did some commercial real estate. So we'd been part of a syndication and apartment building and stuff like that. So going into this, our thought was, well, it's like flipping a house. We'll just get a private investor for each house, and then they can get ownership in that house, and we'll just kind of do it like one by one. So our first 4 vacation rentals were all just with private investors who got equity in the home, and they just own that one house. And that was all great, but we wanted to scale and scale faster, and also provide more diversity for our investors. So we then created PPM funds where we can bundle a whole bunch of houses, and they invest in that fund, which gets ownership in multiple houses. So now we can do a round of PPM. We have a PPM fund open every year, essentially. And it's great because we can get houses in multiple markets in that fund to take investor funds where they're getting diversity, they're getting multiple home ownership. They actually still get ownership in the home because that LLC that they're investing in is on title. So it's a secure investment, and it's very passive for them because they can just write a check, they get ownership in all these homes, and then they get quarterly dividends. And then when we go and sell it, they get a profit too. So it's a great way to work with investors who don't have the time to want to go create vacation rentals themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It creates an incredible opportunity. And it's the first time between Loma and TechFester that I've seen sort of this commercial approach to the short-term rental space, right? Now, ultimately, I think there are probably some really solid private portfolios out there, but I imagine, at least from my research, they're kind of self-funded and, maybe a small group like kind of how you guys started. But to scale now, you can sort of create, like you said, this PPM syndication and obviously scale it larger, right? Which means even more data points and, even more efficiencies, and it just keeps building from there. Now, you guys are currently in the process of exiting a portion of your portfolio. Kind of discuss that, what that's looked like, and then kind of what your plan is after that.
Yeah, so part of our business model is that we are buying these houses individually as single family homes. And if you're familiar with real estate or even bought your own home, you know that the value of a home is determined by what the houses around it are selling for. So like it gets appraised by comps. Well, when you're doing commercial, if you're familiar with commercial valuation, it's based on caps. So cap rates are determined by how much revenue is being brought in. And that kind of makes the value of the property because you're selling a business rather than just a single family home. So if you can bundle houses together in portfolio, you're now selling a business and almost like an apartment complex instead of just one single family home. So our business model is based around getting single family homes and then bundling them, selling them off as more of a commercial property because it's up and running. All of them are fully like staged and have some history of performing as a vacation rental. And so we're selling this fully operational business, and we do property management in-house. So we will even keep managing it for you. So that way the buyer who comes and gets it, they will hire us as a property management company. So it'll be seamless, but they just get a business that's self-running. So right now we're kind of exploring and starting our first exit with that. So we're selling 7 properties in a portfolio to a larger like investment group. And they're just right now, it's like a newer thing that's happening in the market, but institutional investors, larger investment groups are looking to diversify, and short-term rentals provide higher returns for them. So I think it's going to be happening a lot more, even though we're somewhat pioneers along with TechVestor into this space.
Yeah, it is awesome. And I appreciate that explanation there, going from the comp to the cap rate, right? That's important to understand because that's kind of the whole key to how the exit strategy is developed. But yeah, it is really awesome kind of being part of this sort of pioneer space. One thing I want to touch on, a lot of people nervous about the short-term rental space in terms of, seeing a bubble, right? If you've stayed a short-term rental, in fact, we were just looking for a potential kind of staycation. Prices are pretty high, even in places where you wouldn't imagine to be spending that much. Any data points touching on some sort of bubble, or, are you able to also use that same data to kind of mitigate that?
I actually think we're kind of on the tail end of that bubble. We had a huge bubble in 2021 and even the end of 2020 because there was this revenge travel. People were not traveling during COVID, especially the beginning, where they're scared of, and there's regulations and all this stuff. Once we kind of got over that fear, people had missed out and they were stir crazy to get out. So we had this revenge travel in 2021, where I think that was the big bubble. On our rentals and on our data that we're looking at, it's already softening. So I think it's kind of leveling out back to normal. I don't think it's going to have a drastic drop by any means, but you can't pull, that's just one thing. If you're looking at data, you can't rely solely on 2020 data. You have to look at 2019 prior to COVID, kind of ignore 2020 and 2021 because you have an anomaly of a dip that's really low and then it shoots up really high. And I think we're just kind of getting normalized again. And we've noticed that our properties have slowed down this year compared to last year, but it's because people have now gotten their travel caught up.
I love that. That was an awesome explanation. And one thing too is when you do have a good portfolio like this, right, that runs efficient and you've got the good management and everything like that, you can kind of weather those storms as they do kind of ebb and flow because the short-term rental space does ebb and flow, depending on the seasons and different things like that. So when you have those good portfolios, it's all going to balance each other out. So, if one property per se isn't doing great, you still have the other ones to carry it through.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. I love it. And so now what's your plan moving forward, right? You've got this exit to more of an institutional, where they're, taking a portion. What do you guys plan to do next?
Yeah, so we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, but hopefully scale it faster. Since we'll get an influx of capital, we can use that to double down on our investments. We're going to raise more funds, continue to grow. Our goal is to get to the point where we're even in talks with some bigger name partners who funds actually want to work with us proactively. They can tell us what markets they want. We essentially build it for them and then sell those portfolios to them, but they get more say in what they want. So as we're building this new space out and getting a name for ourselves, our goal is just to keep doing what we're doing, but faster and bigger. So we'll keep investing in the markets we already have, but then grow. Loma Homes wants to be known as a vacation rental space that provides experiences. And no matter where you go, what state it's in, what you're going to get. It's going to be a beautiful home. It's going to be clean. It's going to have good customer service, and it's going to provide great memories. So we'll continue to expand throughout the U.S. as we also are growing the current markets and then keep selling them off as portfolios.
I love it. That's awesome. So one thing I want to touch on, you mentioned there are investors coming to you guys to have you sort of build a portfolio for them, and then you sell it to them. Did I hear that correctly?
It's kind of like we're in talks. So we don't have official contracts yet, but we have talks with a few bigger name ones where they want to get in short-term rentals, but it's a lot of work to actually buy a normal house and turn it into a high-performing vacation rental. So it'd almost be like pre-selling a portfolio. They would say, hey, we will fund you to make 20 or 100 of these houses for us. So we would create them and then sell them every year or every few months, the whole bundle of which ones are complete. So then they can be like a customized product for them.
I love it. That's incredible. So kind of touch on, just kind of Reader's Digest version. We've kind of individually talked about each point in this process, but kind of touch on the whole process, right? So it starts with a comp. So talk about what helps you decide on the market, and then of course, where in that market and all the data surrounding it.
Yeah. So one thing that's unique about us is we do everything in-house, which is funny. So once again, it wasn't our original plan. We thought we'd use a property management company. We thought we'd outsource as much as possible, but we have very high expectations of how we want work done. And we've realized that after trying to outsource, we end up back in our own plate because we have such high standards. So for us, it starts with the data analysis of what markets. So Kyle and Jeff kind of run data looking at AirDNA and Price Labs at what home prices are versus what the revenue it brings in. And we want to find the highest margins there, where you can get the cheapest house for the most annual revenue. It doesn't even matter if it's somewhere we love to visit. We're not going to these homes. It's not a personal investment. It's finding the best profit margins. So we analyze markets for that ratio. Our golden rule is we call the 20% rule. So the annual revenue should be 20% or more of what the cost is to get into it. So the purchase of the house and any construction to get it started. So we use that kind of as our golden room to pick the markets. Then once we pick the markets, Kyle, he's our acquisitions arm. So he will find the houses that are meeting that 20% rule. We really look for ones that are value add. Every single house we've bought has had construction. Most of them major construction. We'll take like a 3-bedroom house and turn it into a 8-bedroom house, or we've got duplexes we turn into large single family homes, because not only do we have the data to figure out what market, but we have a data of what our perfect house is. So we run and see, hey, now we know this is our perfect market, like Orlando, for example. It was high performing. Now we're in the market. What house is going to do the best? And we figured out the larger houses are the most profitable because there's less people, less competition. And you also aren't competing with hotels anymore, because people who are large groups, they would have to get 10 hotel rooms, or they can get one house that would meet their needs. So once Jeff and Kyle kind of come up with what the ideal home is, like maybe in some markets, for example, Orlando and Destin, pools increase your value. There's some that hot tubs, or like the location. So all those things are very mathematical for us. Is like we are looking within a certain amount of distance from Disney World, for example, in Orlando, or you're looking from whatever attractions are there. You just analyze the data down to like that specific. So then once we find the house, Kyle hands that off to me and my team, and we do the construction and the design management. So we do work with like local contractors, but we manage them. And then we do all the staging and designs in-house with local teams that will help implement it. And we're flying out all the time to oversee that. And then Jeff takes it back as property management once it's finished, and his team does the day-to-day operations once it's live and up and running.
I love it. It's a well-oiled machine that you guys have going, and obviously you've got your rinse and repeat model down. Now, one question I know, just kind of putting on my passive investor hat, that I'd be curious about, you obviously live in Utah. How do you manage all of this remotely? What are some of the keys there, and to make sure that everything's operating effectively?
Yeah, it's all about building the team, and getting that started initially is rocky, finding the right people. I mean, we went through 3 or 4 within a few months of like boots on the ground on multiple positions that we were looking for. But once you find the right team, that's where it happens. And also processes, like, so for us, we have documented processes. We use a software called Guru that we're actually working on implementing and making so every part of everyone's job is almost documented. So then when you bring new people in, it's easy for them to like plug in questions and look at a training and systemize it that way. So our goal is to systemize everything and then plug good people into that system. So we have, although our headquarters in Utah, we don't have any properties in Utah, but Kyle, Jeff, and I, and a couple of our employees like marketing and my project managers are here. But then on boots on the ground, we have people who are helping with property management and who are inspecting the houses before every turnover and helping to do walkthroughs when it's under construction. So you need to have someone local who keeps eyes on the property and on the like cleaners and contractors.
I love it. And like anything else, right? Like you said, you may have to go through a couple, but that's the process that you now have refined to where I imagine you're going into the market. You've already got 4 or 5 that you're already calling and getting started.
Yeah.
and kind of, vetting right from the start before you even get into a new market.
And that's actually a good point, that when we're picking markets, we have to know that we can put up at least like 10 properties or so, because you don't want just one-offs everywhere, or else you're doing all this work to find the boots on the ground and they just have one house. So a lot of the work is a new market. You want to make sure that market can sustain multiple investments.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Bryndee, this has been amazing. Really appreciate all of your insight here. It was obviously great chatting with you again. But we'll go ahead and wind down. We'll jump to the final 5. First question, best advice you've gotten from a mentor?
My best advice, I think, would be just figure it out. So I think that that's the motto of our life is we've taken on new things. We've tried lots of different parts of real estate. And if I was always looking for the perfect answer before jumping in, we would never make anything. Like, you just figure it out one step at a time, and you just have to be calculated in your decisions, but you have to take action to move forward.
I love it. That may have to be the title of this podcast, because that was something that I sensed super early on where you're like, oh yeah, I actually didn't know what to do, but I just started Googling and I was like, yes, that's it.
And I feel like that's my life, right?
Yep. Yep. You
And
just
not to
figure it
say you
out.
get experience and you learn it, but don't be afraid to try new things, and just, it's one step at a time. Just figure out what the next step, and then you figure out the step after that, and then you get better and better, and that's how you learn.
And you will mess up, and that's okay. You just
Yep.
be like, cool, I won't do that again, hopefully.
Right.
I love it. What is it about your career that makes you feel like you're fulfilling your why?
My favorite part of my job, and this is when I was flipping houses too, and this is like walking in after we have completed a project and feeling like we made the world a little bit more beautiful. So in a regular flip, I loved it because it's like, oh, someone gets to enjoy this house and their life is better because this house was falling down and ugly, and now it's beautiful, and I'm providing that for someone's life. Now it's that we finish like the memories that we're creating for families. That is what's fulfilling for me, is I'm creating these awesome houses that people will remember, and creates those memories and family time.
I love it. That's so awesome. Yeah, I've seen some of the reviews of some of the TechVestor houses, and it's really cool to see that people like truly got a magical experience. I'm sure you guys have plenty of the same reviews on yours as well.
Yep.
Favorite non-real estate or investment related book?
You know what? I would say The Choice, which is a book about, it's Edith, I can't remember her last name, but she is a Holocaust survivor.
Oh,
and
wow.
I love just learning about some of those historical events, especially when people go through hard things and they come out better for it, and the lessons they learn. So that's one I read last year, and it was pretty impactful, and I loved it.
Awesome. Definitely put that on the list. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
To not sleep. Which is funny. My husband and I are joke about this, but he loves to sleep. Like, and they say if you'd rather live longer or not sleep. And I was like, imagine how much more you could accomplish if you could just never have to sleep. I feel like I have this never-ending to-do list, not just with work. It's not that I just want to work 24/7, but I have 3 kids and I have personal hobbies, and I feel like there's never enough time for everything. And if I could just double the amount of time and I never had to sleep, I would be able to fulfill all my dreams.
I love it. I have actually gotten that before, but that would be a great superpower. You're exactly right. Because then you really could, right? Like you could totally change your hours of when you work, and then you're just playing during the best possible times for all your
And
hobbies.
it's better than living longer because you're still working double while everybody else is only working 1 or whatever. So you are doing the double pace while they like, so you're going to get ahead of your competition.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like equals living longer anyway, because you've done more it's like a more efficient, right? It's like when something's a longer distance, but takes less time because it's like more highway or something, you know?
Yep.
Awesome. And what's the best way for people to get a hold of you and learn more?
You can email me if you have any questions directly. Bryndee, BRYNDEE at loma-homes.com. Or we have an Instagram that's at Loma Homes. We're always posting things behind the scenes. A lot of times when I'm traveling, I'll be posting. You can get a hold of me or our team there.
Awesome. And then did you have an educational piece as well?
We actually did recently launch a vacation rental course. It's called Loma Vacation Academy. So www.lomavacationacademy.com. And we just teach others what we do. We got so many questions and how we do it and how we analyze data and whatnot, that if you're looking to be active investor and jump into the space, that's a great resource. If you're looking to be passive, we're always got funds open for investors as well.
Awesome. Love it. We'll link that in the show notes, make it super easy. Bryndee, thank you again so much. It's been awesome.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you again for tuning in. Who do you know that wants more cash flow? Share this episode with them so you can grow your cash flow together. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you're subscribed on your platform of choice so you never miss a new episode. Go to CataniCapitalGroup.com to learn more.